Hello everybody, I am Matt Kuringa. I'm a professor at Adelphi University where I teach in our doctoral program in learning sciences, and I oversee the computer science education track and our educational technology program. Today though, I'm making this video to support our new Maps at MIXI Club, where we meet every Thursday at our downtown Brooklyn campus. And we talk about making maps about New York City, studying the geography, cartography, learn some computer science, some programming, some QGIS, different GIS skills, and just kind of hang out and have fun talking about maps. This is the first video that I'm making, and in this video we're going to make a map that looks like this one, which is showing the median income in New York City and the surrounding suburbs, where the dark areas are the highest income and the light areas are the lowest income. So we're going to do this in just a few lines of code, and let's take a look at how we make that happen. So right now we have this code, and this is in Jupyter Notebook, which is an interactive Python programming format that lets you mix both your code, some more human readable content, and the output of the code all in one file. So it's a nice way for showing the code and your work at the same time if it's important for people to understand how you do it. It's also good for teaching and putting together tutorials like this one. So right now, all this green text, these are comments. They start with this hash, and they are just messages that are for other humans or yourself, not for the computer. So the comments aren't part of the code, and I just put some comments basically to talk about what we're going to do. And each of these, they're called cells, and we can run them one at a time. So the very first thing we're going to do is install miximaps, which is a package that I'm going to hit play here. So this is a package that we've been writing with some extra functionality to help programmers make maps, especially geared around the US Census and New York City open data, because those are the big data sets that we're working with in our club. Just make it easier to get that data around New York, and have some helpers to make it look nicer and things like that. In Python and many programming languages, you get the core functionality that's part of the language. And then other people can write libraries that do more specific things. And that's what we're doing here with miximaps. It's just like a little lightweight library that we are working on. And if you want to help us develop it, come to one of the meetings or join our Discord, and you can pitch in. All right. So the next thing we do is we tell our program what libraries we need to use. And we're only going to import a couple here. So we're going to import census because we need it. And this gray text, these are suggestions that Colab is giving me based on its AI. So it's trying to guess what I want. And we're going to import two little helper libraries from our miximaps package and this census library, which is going to help us connect to the US Census. So to use census, the first thing we need to do is read our API key. Now the API key lets the census servers know who you are. And it's just a way that it's free, just a way that they know that you're not overloading their servers or taking up more resources than you should be, right? So if you want to get your own API key and to run this code, you will have to. Just go to search engine, search census, API key, something like that. And the very first result should be the sign up. You put in, your organization. It could be anything, and your email, and they will email you the key. Now, once you have the key in your email, you're going to come over here and click on this key in Colab, and that will pop up this key panel. And you're going to add a new secret key. And you can see mine's already in here. For the name, you're going to put census API key. And then for the value, you're going to enter whatever the key is that you received in your email. It's just going to be kind of a random string of letters and numbers, right? So I don't need it because I already have it in there. And then it tells us what we need to access this key in our program. So I'm just going to copy this. I can click the little copy. I'll paste it over here. I'm going to read the key, right? But where it says secret name, I'm going to replace that with the actual name of my key. And I want to save that into a variable. I'll call it API key, right? So API key is the variable name that I created, and I'm going to read census API key and save it into this variable so my program can use it. Next thing, I'm going to create another variable. I'm going to call it year, and that's going to be 2023. And then I'm going to create a census object. I'm going to call it C. And now I'm using this census library to create a census object using our API key and telling it the year is going to be 2023, right? So this little helper, C, and C is a very short variable name that's kind of the convention for working with census. So if you look at their documentation examples online, you'll see that C is used often. So we're going to just stick with that convention, even though we could call it anything we want to pretty much. Now we have this connector to the census that's going to send our API key when we use it. All right, so that's a little bit of setup. And when you do enter like new code, you need to run the cell for it to execute and be part of your program. And you'll see it has a little check mark once we've run it. If you do something wrong, like let's say I mistyped year, you'll get an error in here, and you can read the error, try to fix it up, and you can see that like it highlighted this, and it says it's not defined. So there we go. Rerun my block, and it worked. All right, now let's dive into some census data. So we are going to use the ACS5 census survey. So that's updated more frequently than the 10-year census. And it's a good table for us. Or a good census for us because it has like discrete level data. So up down to the tract level that we're going to be looking at. But it's more frequent than the 10-year decennial survey. We don't need to wait every 10 years to get new data. So it's kind of a sweet spot for the kind of work that we're doing. We're mostly going to use the ACS5. There's a 1-year survey that's updated more frequently, but it doesn't cover as many geographies. So it's kind of a trade-off there. The ACS5 is a good one for us. Now, to get this data for just the tracts in New York City, we need to know the county names and county numbers and things. And that's something that we've already done for you with our miximaps package. So we have created a little helper in this package, the library called New York City, miximaps.nyc. And there's a function in there called get tracts. And just so you get used to using Colab a little bit, the gray text is the AI help. This is the IDE help, and this means it's definitely there, and it's a real thing for sure. It can't be a hallucination. Get tracts, and then that's a function. So I'm going to pass in the census object because it needs that. And we can see here, this is what it's expecting. Then next, it wants to know the table name to look up. And I can pass in a year. And that way, it'll be the same. My function will use the same year that our census object was created with. So getTracts does two things for us. It knows what the tracts are in New York City. And it also will look up the geography for them. So normally when you look up with the census object, you get only the data, but you don't get the geospatial data It doesn't tell you like where the tract is in the world, just what the tract number is. And you would get that somewhere else from the tiger shape files. And now there's one more optional parameter here, which is the region. And the default is inner, but we'll make it explicit in case you want to change it to some of the other options, which are city, which are just the 5 boroughs, and metro, which is the whole metro area. So inner is going to be New York City and the bordering counties like Nassau, Westchester County, and then across the river, some of the Jersey counties that are right across the river. All right. Now, we are saving this into a variable called df. And again, this is a convention for a data frame. And data frame is part of pandas library, which is the main data science library for doing work in Python. So we use it a lot in the club. We'll use it a lot when we're teaching. If you're doing data science in Python, you know pandas. All right, let me close that window here. So the last thing is to show the data. And if we just leave it as the last line in our cell block, it'll show us a little bit of that table. So what's happening now is our Python program running on some Google server somewhere, sending a request for data to the census servers, which are running on some computer somewhere, and they're sending back data about this table. The next thing that it does, our program looks up the geometry of those tracks, and then it merges them together so we have this data frame. Now, a data frame organizes its data into columns that have names and rows. So each row in this data represents a single tract in the census, and a tract in New York City, within the city, is a few blocks typically. A tract out in the suburbs, you'll see, is a larger geographic area, but they try to keep about the same size of people. Maybe like 1,500 to 2,500 people are in a tract. I'm not sure exactly what the rules are for it, but that's about the size, the population size of a census tract. We can look at this. This is the whole table here. We have one column called geographic area name, right? And that's tract 1 in the Bronx, New York, right? So that's the name. This geography, this is a number that the US Census uses, which is like a fully qualified number. So the first part is the country. The next part is 36 is New York State. Then the part after that is going to be the county. And I assume that 005 is Bronx. And then the last part is going to be the tract. So that's tract 100,100, right? Now this is what we really care about. This column is with this long name, the median household income in the past 12 months in 2023 inflation adjusted dollars, right? So that's the median income in 2023. And we could see this large negative number for this tract in the Bronx. So any negative numbers, and especially all 6s, they indicate that there was no data for this tract in this census survey. For some reason, there is no information available for us, right? But if we go down to tract 2, this is more readable. We see that the median income was $121,171 for that tract. So this is what we're going to care about, and we're going to take a look at this column to make a nice map that shows us the relative median incomes in the New York area. So one thing, this is the column we care about. It's got this very long name, and often you'll have names that aren't great. So one thing you'll do a lot is rename things on your data frame. So we're going to pass in the old name. This is called a dictionary in Python. We've got curly brackets and then a key on the left. And then we give it a new name. We'll call it median income. And we're going to tell it to do it in place is true. So once we run line 2 here, it's going to change this in df. And we can just run that and take a look. So now a much shorter column name, Median Inc. And if we want to clean up this data a little bit, we could drop these. So we're going to reassign into data frame. We say df, and these square brackets, we're going to give it a little selection criterion here, a filter. So we only want df dot median inc where it's greater than 0. So we don't want any zeros or negative numbers because that indicates that the data isn't accurately reflecting median income. It's some other code or some other problem, right? So we do that, and I'm just doing Control Enter to run the cell quickly. Okay, and we can see we don't have any of those negative 66666 numbers anymore. Okay, now our data is in good shape to make a map. And we can, if we want, we can play around with it a little bit. We can do df.median inc, and we could call like a function called min. That'll just tell us the lowest value. So the smallest median income is $2,500 essentially, right? And we could do max, and that'll tell us the highest. And this is kind of a cutoff. It's 250,000 plus. So even though the median income might be higher in some communities, we don't know it because it's not included in this survey. Okay, and there's a function called describe that's part of data frame, and it gives you kind of general descriptive statistics on the column, right? So we have 3,294 different census tracts. So those are the rows, and those are the number of tracts we have in our data set altogether. The mean median income for the entire area is $100,450, right? So we've got the standard deviation. So 51,000, the minimum we saw. These are the different cutoffs, right? And then the max we saw already. All right, so we'll just leave that in there. And now I'm going to show you how easy it is to make a basic thematic map that shows us the median income. We call df, and there's a function called explore, and we tell it what column we want to explore. Okay, just like that. That should be enough. We run that. It takes a little while because it's got these 3,000 columns to work with, but it's building a map for us, a little interactive map. And there we go. So it looks like the yellow are the rich areas. And I can tell that because we've got like Nassau County out here, Westchester County, wealthy parts of New Jersey. Scroll in, I've got Tribeca, that's yellow. So these are my rich areas. And then it looks like my poor neighborhoods are going to be purpley here. All right. And that's a very basic map. Just one line of code, tell it what column we want, and we get a map. Now we can add some more arguments, right? So arguments are data that we pass into a function that are going to control the way the function operates. So we could say we want to use a different color map, and we can give it the name, and I'll say let's make this all shades of purple. Right? So maybe this is a little bit easier to read. All right. And we'll leave it at there for right now. We'll leave this map as it is, just so you can see how to make a nice, easy map. And then we're going to make one more where we're going to customize it a little bit more, right? So we have one of the packages we installed, or that we installed it and then we imported it. This is this little UI helper package. So that just helps us, UI is going to help us make better user interfaces. It just has some built-in functions that make it easier to make nice maps. So the first thing we're going to do is create a base map that doesn't have like all these streets and parking garages and things like that. So I'm going to say UI dot base map, and I'm going to pass in my map. Right. So that is going to give us, there's no data on it yet, but it gives us more of a blank, clean canvas, so we can put our data on it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to call explore, but we're going to use a lot more of Explorer's features. We're going to pass our map into it as the first argument, and that way it'll know what map to put it on top of. See? So we moved it to green. We're using the greens. Dark greens are wealthy. Light greens are not as wealthy, right? And you see how I'm getting this pop-up here? We can change that. And we could say that's called the tooltip. And we can tell it what column to use. It will use all of them by default. And we could move the rest of the stuff into a pop-up. And for now, we'll just say pop-up is true, so use it. And let's take a look at this map. So it looks the same, but now when I mouse over it, it shows me the median income. But since we are people and we're trying to make a nice map, maybe we should format this with commas and a $sign the way that people are used to reading it. So what we'll do is we will create a new column. All right, so I'm going to say df. And here is my, I'll call it median income, like how I actually want it to show up, right? You can see the column name is part of this pop-up. So median income, and I'm going to say df dot median income inc dot apply. I got to spell it right. So what we're going to do is write a little lambda function, this anonymous inline function, and we're going to take f and we're going to return a formatted version of f. It's called an f string in Python. You could look it up, or you could just ask us, or ask your favorite AI. So we're going to put a $sign in front of it, and we're going to take f and we're going to format that with comma separators, and we don't want any zeros at the end, right? We don't want any cents, just whole dollars. So here, for our shading, we're going to use the real median income, which is a number. But when we show it to the user, we're going to use this new column, median inc, and it's going to make it look better. I got sidetracked by my error here. I can see it's saying median inc is not available in the data. And that's because the new column I created is called median income, but the column I tried to use, I called it median inc. So I'll just run that again. All right, so now this is starting to look a little bit better. And when we click on it, we get these pop-ups, right? And I think we'll just call it a day. We'll leave it at that, and that will be the map. So click on it to get all of the data. Mouse over it, you get the median income, and now we have a nice little colored choropleth where we can investigate changes in income. And if I scroll out, the pattern I'm getting is the suburbs, and not quite the bordering suburbs, have the wealthiest areas, as well as the core of Manhattan and downtown Brooklyn, right? So these are all the wealthy neighborhoods in New York are clustered in central Manhattan, downtown Brooklyn, right? And then along the river, Long Island City, Williamsburg, Greenpoint, and so on. And then you go out, we get some less wealthy areas in the close suburbs, and then these very wealthy areas out here. All right, that is our income map. This is a basic tutorial of how to make a thematic map using the US Census and our new miximaps package. As I said, we meet every week. Come join us at the Map Club. It's a lot of fun, and hope to see you there.